Hello Clashers, Ashlane here today, getting ready to play some Clash Royale, and I figured I'd start a new series that I'm going to stick with over the long term here and there, where we actually go through beginner decks, effective in winning beginner decks. That way you guys have an idea of good combinations to use. We're going to be using cards from the training camp, including the Knight, and we might as well use Goblin Stadium. I have already episodes out covering just the training camp, so we'll go with Goblin Stadium and Bone Pit cards as well. So maybe the skeletons, we'll cover how to use those epics, the balloon and the giant skeleton, as well as, of course, the tombstone, my favorite card. So the balloon is probably my favorite card out of the Bone Pit. It's certainly Bone Pit. It's certainly my favorite epic. So we'll go ahead and make sure we use the balloon in the first match, but then we'll play another match afterwards where we won't use it. That way you guys can get a feel of just using the giant skeleton on his own. Now, the giant skeleton isn't my normally my favorite card, but he can be effective if you can try to take advantage of an elixir advantage. And then what you want to do is translate that to a push on the opposite lane to try to get that giant skeleton on the enemy's crown tower, on his tower. Now, the reason I say that is it doesn't really matter even if the giant skeleton gets one hit in, and he doesn't do a lot of DPS, but if he gets one hit on that enemy tower, he's going to die as soon as he does die and explode and do like 1,000 damage to that tower. It might not be exactly 1,000 depending on what level your giant skeleton is, but it's a huge amount of damage. So just trying to finish up building this beginner deck today. So what am I missing here? I'm going to use the fireball. I could use spear goblins instead of goblins because we want some troops that can target air. Now I'm just going to ask my clanmates to battle against me randomly. So I want to make sure we build a balanced deck. So this is pretty balanced. We have two big offensive weapons, the balloon and the giant skeleton. We're going to use the musketeer to have even more ground support against those air troops. So she will be good to have. Let's go ahead and make sure everybody is accepted and denied. I ran out of gold, but let's go ahead and do test and see if someone accepts my battle, and then we'll go ahead and do it all over again with the same deck with a little different card variations. But if you have a good foundation, you'll be good to go from there. So this is, okay, so unfortunately we have a couple level advantage, so if we don't win this one, it will be embarrassing. Now this is a little inside expert tip for you guys. If you have a spear goblin or archers at the beginning of your hand, and what I used to do is, waiting for the opponent to make the first play, sometimes I would place those cards in the back of my king tower, but now I place them all the way at the equator, all the way at half court, and even if they can only get a couple spears in, it actually does pretty well at, because every hit point off that tower counts. So I'm making a defense over here in the right-hand lane. He's going to freeze me. I'm going to answer with spear goblins. He's going to get a few hits, though, in on my right tower. But do you understand what I was saying before about the beginning of a match? I'll do it next match, too. But basically, it's just making sure that you're putting in your goblins right at the equator of the map. Then they're going to go ahead, low on battery, and then they're going to go ahead and do some damage, or make the opponent waste elixir defending them. So either way, it's a win. So I tried to sneak my giant skeleton when the opponent didn't have much elixir, and you can see by his sad face that we were successful. Now watch when he dies how much damage he does. Okay, maybe I can sneak him all the way to the king's tower. Maybe I shouldn't have backed him up with that musketeer. That was a little bit too hasty on my part. Would have been better to probably keep the musketeer for a good push on the left-hand lane. Instead, I'm going to drop a balloon. I know he has a decent amount of elixir, but he did just drop those barbarians. So this is how I like to handle barbarians if I'm low on elixir. I'll start out by placing a tombstone that will draw them to the center. Then they're kind of distracted, and then I place some spear goblins or skeletons or something closer to the center of the map. Now he's going to get some damage down on my left-hand tower here, so we're going to go ahead and put some archers down on the board. And then I think we're just going to make a decent offensive. Just get the 2-star, I guess, at this point. Maybe we'll go for 3 here. Depends. So he's coming in at a balloon here. I'm going to drop a musketeer. Musketeer does really well against balloons. So does wizards. So keep that in mind. Just a few shots from my level 6 or 7 Musketeer versus his balloon, so that's certainly a good level advantage there too. But the idea is this is how you play the deck. You're going to start overwhelming him eventually, and even with all these pretty basic cards, they're not from Royal Arena or anything like that, you're really able to overwhelm your opponent with this type of deck. Having those two weapons, the balloon and the giant skeleton, decent synergy, surprisingly, between the two. Let's donate some fireballs and maybe take the balloon out, because not all of you might have balloons yet, so we'll go ahead and play a match. Taking out the balloon, what do we want to add in for the balloon? That's the question. We want it to be something, let's see, maybe another rare card. We'll throw the giant in there. It might be weird to have the giant and the giant skeleton in the same deck. They serve kind of the same purpose, except for obviously the big exception is the giants don't do splash damage when they die, and the giant skeleton is not targeted on your tower like the giant is. But what we can do is we can kind of mount offenses on one side using the giant or the giant skeleton, and then sneak in the other lane. If we can catch the opponent with an elixir advantage, we'll sneak in the giant skeleton or the giant in the opposite lane. It's all about getting an elixir advantage and then trying to go ahead and turn that into a good offensive push, sometimes while you're distracting them in the other lane. So here we go again. Spirit Goblins right on the halfway part. See, now they're going to immediately go in and get some hits in. So it's only 3 or 4 100 elixir, 3 or 4 hits that they got off, but hey, 300 or 400 hit points is actually very, very great. We'll take that. Now notice how I'm going to put this knight behind the witch. That's definitely a strategy key for you guys. You want to make sure you put the knight behind towards the lower hit point troops versus in front. That way the knight would be able to tank for his wizard. So I'm going to put in the giant skeleton here as kind of a big meat shield for that musketeer. We'll see if he can distract the giant skeleton. Now the spirit goblins do a good job cleaning up this skeleton army. They are going to get him low on health. I'm going to go ahead and place a tombstone over here in the right hand lane defending this hog. Now look it. That giant skeleton took that whole tower down. There was like 900 hit points left on that tower. And the giant skeleton died, and boom, it went down. So that is how effective a giant skeleton can be if you can somehow manage a way to get him to that tower, hitting the tower. If you're on defense, make sure you distract those giant skeletons, or they could end up hitting you just like we hit that opponent there. So let's go ahead and kind of reload again. He's coming at me in the left-hand lane, but I'll tell you what, I'm just going to make a hard push right on his right and force him to play defense over here, and then I'll just put some spirit goblins down and just kind of hammer away to make sure he doesn't get too far with that knight and the giant. So meanwhile, I have a nice offensive going in my right-hand lane. I'm going to drop a knight over there in the left lane, just take down that giant. He's getting a little bit too damaged for my comfort there. So, okay, that wasn't the best exchange there, but it's okay. He didn't do too much damage, and we still have the 1 tower lead. So let's go ahead and reload, start being a little bit less rushed on this match here. So he placed a witch a little bit too close to my knight. I'm going to get a couple shots in at him, and then I'm going to drop that giant skeleton. I can't have him do any more damage to my left tower, so I'm going to go ahead and exchange elixir and fireball those goblins. Meanwhile, I'm going to drop a knight again right behind those troops so we can get the wizard, and my giant skeleton's probably going to go down here, but he's going to take out a lot when he goes down. That splash damage does an enormous amount of damage to all the surrounding units, no matter what they are, and if he's touching that crown tower, the crown tower. So it looks like it's probably going to be a 1-0 victory, unless I can fireball. I'm going to fire, yeah, I'm going to get this tower. Boom! All right, so feel a little bit better about this victory. We're a little bit closer matched, but I'll tell you what, guys, this is an effective combination of decks to be using if you're a new player. You need those air targeting troops. You want to bring in your epics, but you don't want to bring in too many. You want to make sure your deck is centered around 1 or 2 main offensive pushes, main offensive weapons and forces. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care.
We don't play for fame, we don't play for cash. We just play for the glory and the crash of the ash.